Hey everyone, George Christie here with Wine Industry Network. Welcome to the second session of the Wine Industry Sales Symposium. This session is titled Maximizing Holiday Sales. The data tells us when and how. Now, before we begin, I want to thank all of our sponsors. As I mentioned earlier, we wouldn't be able to offer these sessions for free without their support. So thank you guys for all your support. Again, we wouldn't be able to do this without your help. Next session is really going to talk about maximizing holiday sales, but just as a little reminder, we always pre-record these sessions a couple days in advance. We do it for quality purposes, but we also want to make sure that we create as much time for engagement as possible. So our speakers are watching this broadcast right along with you. They're in the chat room, so as you have questions, go ahead and submit those questions and our presenters will pick them up as they come in. All right, I think that about covers it. Once again, thanks everyone for their time today. I want to thank all of our sponsors, and I think we're ready to hand it off to Carrie Scott, who is the marketing manager at Wine Direct, to kick things off. Carrie, go ahead and take it away.
This session is sponsored by Avalara, tax compliance done right, and Wine Direct, providing everything your winery needs to start, manage, and grow your direct-to-consumer business.
You've got a lot to communicate, and if you can just get people to pay attention, you'll delight your customers and sell more wine. But people ignore emails and screen calls. Everyone does read their text messages, but alcohol regulations make compliance a bear. Use RedChirp to cut through the noise. Convert website traffic into reservations and sales with web-to-text chat. Reliably reach members about customizing club orders, declined cards, and delinquent pickups. Exceed your sales goals with customized promotions that make everyone feel like a VIP. Securely collect credit card info 6 times faster. Reduce returns and no-shows with completely automated shipment notifications and reservation reminders, while order attribution automatically connects text to sales so you know what's working. RedChirp is trusted by wineries of all sizes and integrates with your other tools. Get more leads, make more sales, and build stronger relationships with RedChirp.
All right, thanks so much, George. We're so happy to be here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. We're delighted to be discussing the holiday season, which is just around the corner. Today, we'll be diving into data on past holiday seasons and sharing the insights that we've discovered and revealing our top tips that you need to get ready to make some holiday DTC magic, perhaps earlier than you're used to. So to start us off, I'd like to introduce myself and my co-panelists that are here with me today, taking us through our presentation here at the Wine Industry Network Sales Symposium. My name is Carrie Scott. I am the marketing manager at Wine Direct, the wine industry's only all-in-one DTC solution. So we work with wineries of all shapes and sizes, offering a full suite of integrated tools, including POS, wine club, e-commerce, marketplace, and fulfillment. And we are also proudly sponsoring today's session. So we're extra grateful for your time today. And next, I'd like to pass it over to Alex. Over to you.
Thanks, Carrie. Hi, I'm Alex Jones, the Direct and Digital Marketing Manager for Gary Farrell Vineyards and Winery. And I'm very excited to be a part of such an important panel discussion and to have the opportunity to share my insights on leveraging digital marketing in the wine industry today. Now, let me introduce you to a good friend of mine, Kathy Hugh.
Hey, thanks, Alex. And Carrie, I'm so glad to be doing this panel with you today. I'm Kathy Hoya, the co-founder and CEO of Enalytics, and I've been really looking forward to this session, especially talking about holiday sales and introducing the data. But then really, I personally feel like the big takeaways are going to come from the two of you on what wineries can do today to impact and improve their holiday seasons this year. So let me toss it back to Carrie.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks, Kathy. So we wanted to start off today by bringing your attention to a change in the holiday shopping trends that's extra important to be aware of right now as it's become more extreme in this post-COVID era. And that is that consumers are shopping for their holiday gifts earlier and earlier each year. In fact, the Global Consumer Behavior Report that was recently released by Astound Commerce, in that report, consumers indicated that they will start their holiday gift shopping between 2 and 6 months ahead of the holiday gifting season. So that means that folks are starting to shop sometimes as early as July, but will still certainly have started come September and October, so just around the corner. And as this piece of the report states, it's likely attributed to supply chain issues, small stock positions by retailers, and just overall preparedness. But next, we also wanted to show that, as you can see here, this reality really stands true for the DTC wine industry. Peak holiday sales season can be pinpointed to September, October, and November, not the OND traditionally used at wineries. OND perhaps is a term for wholesalers and big distributors, but instead for the DTC industry, specifically wine, we're suggesting today that we start thinking about the holiday sales season as SON. So this image is sourced here from the 2021 DTC Impact Report that was published in collaboration between WineDirect and Enolytics earlier this year. And Kathy will share a little bit more about the methodology of the report in just a few moments. But so that set the tone and the context of what we have to look forward to today. I'll just cover briefly what you can expect as we continue. And while we cover these topics, Alex, Kathy, and myself will be in the chat box. We're eager to chat with you and connect with you. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop us a note. We would love to hear from you and connect. So our presentation today, as I mentioned, we'll get started by reviewing past holiday data, setting the context for the discussion that will follow. And from there, we will share our top tips for preparing early, as September is coming up so soon. And that will be in the form of a 5-step plan for you to follow. So we will finish off then by discussing how to measure your success and what to look for as you wrap up your holiday campaigns. So I'll pass it over to you, Kathy, to get things started.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. A quick note here about the methodology and where the data is coming from. As we review these slides and review the past history of data, particularly with a light shining on holiday sales in SOND. So this is it in a nutshell. WineDirect is unparalleled when it comes to how much data they have as a company. And it's extraordinary opportunity for Enolytics to analyze this data. So in a nutshell, WineDirect has the data, Enolytics analyzes it. You could see that our initial report that Carrie referenced was the 2021 Impact Report going back 5 years. And we've since updated those numbers. We started out at 162 million orders at the end of 2021. We're now at the end of Q2 in 2022 up to 170 million orders. And the exciting thing is that we're able to update that data on a regular cadence that is quarterly, so that we can offer very timely insights to wineries to adjust their strategies heading into, in our case, the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. Let's start with gifters. We're talking about the holidays. We have to talk about gifters. We define gifters we identify or flag gifters in the sense that the billing address is different than the shipping address. There's a little bit of an assumption going into that, meaning that the person who paid for the order is not the person who's receiving the order in all cases. So that's where we start with the definition and the context for how we're looking at gifters. So here we're looking at 2021 gifting activity throughout the year. And what you can see pretty clearly is that throughout the year, averaging around 8% of orders are gifts, going from January, starting out strong in January and then going through the year, hitting a low actually at the start of our SON, September, October, November, before jumping up in December, as you can expect, to more than twice the average for the rest of the year. So it's, and I also wanted to point out that January here, we're talking about SON and OND, but January also is the second strongest gifting month of the year typically. So something to keep in mind in terms of gifting sort of continues through the holiday season into January. Next slide, please, Carrie. So here we wanted to look at gifts by channel and also by price point. So you can see from the top bar, the top horizontal bar on this slide, that the admin panel, which is typically orders that are phoned in, and the telemarketing panel in 2021 counted for more than 60% of gifts. So I think that's really interesting to note in the context of this conversation. People phoning in and also people texting, in some cases, their orders. And the second bar on the bottom, as you might expect, we're looking at the price point for the gifts for the wine that are offered as gifts. The majority are clustered toward the upper end of the scale, meaning basically the luxury wines are most often those that are gifted in 2021 for sure. Next slide, please. So our research likes to enhance the data in different ways, especially around demographics. So we look at gender, we look at geography, and we look at generation. So here on this slide, we took the slice of SOND and said, who's buying and how old are they and which generation do they belong to when they're buying in this last part of the year. So you can see here that female boomers are actually leading the way in terms of those purchasing gifts in this last part of the year, which I think is very interesting. And something to keep in mind as you're thinking about your marketing campaigns heading into the holiday season, perhaps keeping that female boomer demographic top of mind. Next slide, please, Carrie. Carrie started with the slide looking at the SOND, and sort of it just really stood out to us when we looked at the numbers going back those 5 years, but this was during 2021 in particular. So SON, September, October, November, but then there's such a drop off in December. So we wanted to take a look at what accounts for that drop off, especially between September and December. Next slide, please, Carrie. So here we're looking at September sales. So just drilling in and kind of focusing on September, and you can see that the lion's share really of the sales are coming in club. So keep that sort of visual in mind. And then next slide, please, Carrie, is December. So basically club and POS or tasting room have swapped places. So in September, club sales, probably a club shipment, that's accounting for most of the revenue, as opposed to tasting room in December. So they've switched places, and tasting rooms being busy during the holiday season. Also wanted to notice here that that website shows has a strong performance during the month of December as well. Next, please, Carrie. Here we're looking at AOV by those channels, the primary channels being club sales, telemarketing, tasting room sales, and website sales. The admin panel and telemarketing, as I mentioned earlier, are responsible for the majority of the gifts. So check out the AOV in those two channels. And then the traditionally strong channels, the club, the tasting room, the website, account for the rest. With the tasting room having the lowest AOV of the 5 during SOND at least. And then next slide, we also wanted to look at average discounts throughout 2021. And this was surprising to me. I was surprised to see that the lowest discount being offered was in the month of September. And December, the end of the period that we're focusing on in this webinar, being the second highest. So this is a really interesting dynamic, and it also, the discounts go up as we move through the holiday buying season. And I I want to invite my co-panelists here with their winery experience to talk about why that is, or their theories about why that is. And it's a perfect setup and a perfect segue, I think, to toss it over to Alex to head into the next portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Kathy. So how to create BTC holiday magic. So we've set the foundation of when and why to begin your holiday programming early. Now we get to take a look at the how. So we prepared 5 steps to share with you on how to prepare to maximize your holiday season and to maximize your sales to its greatest effect for your business. All right, so step 1 is defining your goals, whether that's sales club signups or engagement or even data collection. You want to make sure you know exactly what it is you want to accomplish. At this point in time, get granular. If it's a sales, speak to the percentage that you're trying to accomplish. If it's club signups, how much are you trying to increase your membership count by? But seriously, do not discount engagement because it is the lifeblood of the interaction between your consumers and your winery. So just make sure that you keep that in account. Next slide, please. So step 1 in practice, what metrics are you tracking? While it's important to speak to the overall goals that you're trying to accomplish, also make sure to define what your KPIs are on a base level or a campaign level. If you're sending out an email, what conversion rate are you looking for? What is the ROI that you want to set as your baseline metric? Having these clearly defined KPIs will allow you to test and optimize your campaigns to see which ones are performing the best. You also want to, like I mentioned earlier, be flexible about your measurements. Don't solely rely upon just sales alone. Engagement is key. Staying top of mind for your customers and being the go-to winery that when someone mentions a Pinot Noir, in our case at Gary Farrell, we want to be that winery that comes up first. And the biggest part about step 1 in terms of planning is segmenting your audience. I know Kathy already spoke to gifters and being able to take that data and determine who's gifting what and around what time frame. Well, you want to use this data to build your custom segments utilizing that. You can break it down by channel, buying behavior, demographics, or even your by psychographics. But the key to all of that is focusing on a clear, concise message. I know segmenting can be a rabbit hole that you don't necessarily always want to go down, but don't be afraid to get granular and take your segmentation a step further. So let's say that I already have an audience broken down into gifters, but I have a surplus in my Pinot Noir stock that I need to move by the holidays. So I can then take the list of gifters and segment it even further based upon gifters who are more than likely to give a Pinot Noir as a gift. And now I have a power offer matched up with the power segment. So keep that in mind. Right. And so now I'll pass it back to Carrie for 5 ways to segment your list for the holidays.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just piggybacking off of what you're saying there. We just wanted to offer 5 ideas of ways that you could segment your list for the holidays. Already Kathy and Alex have covered some great ideas. We just wanted to start some of that brainstorming for you. So it also depends on the data you have available, as Alex mentioned, depending on the level of granularity you can go, how deep you can go. But here's some ideas to get started. One list, that gifter list that has been mentioned by both of my co-panelists here. This is the list of folks that have ordered from you in the past year. Maybe you want to set that parameter. And the folks that have the billing information that's different than their shipping information, as Kathy shared. You can also look to your list of corporate orders over the past year or beyond, just for some inspiration of the group that you want to be setting a promotion for. Another list that you can look to are the customers who bought from you during November and December, perhaps of last year. You know that they purchased from you in the past during the season. Consider reaching out to them again. Next is those last minute buyers. So these are the folks that bought within 1 week of Thanksgiving or bought within 1 week of Christmas. You can reach out to them, set them up for success. So maybe they're not so last minute next year. You can get in front of them before that. You can also take a look at the channels that these folks purchased from to get some inspiration on how to target them. Next would be your customers at risk. So to find these customers, you're going to look through an RFM analysis. So that's recency, frequency, and monetary value. And we can just hone in there to see when their last purchase was, how many months it's been, and their all-time net sales. You can identify that list. And then you can take that to the next level, doing that with your club members. So one being customers, non-club members, and then again, looking at your club, you want to identify those who are at risk potentially of leaving the club and capturing them this holiday season. So that's 5 ways to get started. Hopefully we've offered some thoughts, but I'll pass it back to Alex here.
Now, we've already covered a lot of information when it comes to segmentation. So our question for you is, does anything come to mind for you? Or is there anything that you plan on doing based upon the information that we've already provided? Or maybe something that you've done that was effective last year? I know for myself, another key segment that comes to mind for me is building a list based upon customers that are more likely to shop if there's a promo involved. So yeah, leave us a message in the chat. And now I'm going to pass it back to Carrie.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. So before we move into the step 2 of this 5-step plan, and that will be developing your holiday campaigns, we wanted to remind you of some of those groundwork activities that must be completed before you dive into the next step. Those are the foundational tasks that I'm sure you've thought of, but we just wanted to bring them as top of mind activities that you can do today. Once the symposium's over, you can shut your computer and get started. So the first one I wanted to share was to take a look at your inventory. Which wines do you have available? And can you access them, or are they off-site? Are you confident in their condition? Do you need to get in touch with your inventory team, if you're a winery of that scale, to understand what's really available and what you can be working with here? I also encourage you to factor in any upcoming club shipments. We know that September and early October are often club seasons. So which wines are you sure will still be available after the shipments go out? Those are the ones you want to be planning with. And then as well, which wines do you want to sell out of by the end of the year? Perhaps your fresh, your crisp, fruit-forward wines that wouldn't necessarily benefit from any further aging. Maybe that's your rosé. That could be a category of wine that you want to sell out of before the end of the year. And then additionally, one other thing that comes to mind, some heavy lifting that you can do for your consumers on their behalf, is creating holiday bundles. So curating a selection, everyone knows this, but if you're curating a selection, whether it be 3, 6, 12 bottles of wines, you're surrounding it around a certain theme, perhaps that's value or varietal, food pairings, or something related to the segment that you've already defined, whatever it may be, you're just doing that heavy lifting for the consumer so that in just a few clicks, they are purchasing from your website and they can cross a name off of their list and they're ready to go into the holiday season. Okay, so now that that groundwork is covered, I'll throw it back to you, Alex, for step 2 and 3.
Perfect, thanks. So this is my favorite part of the whole process, developing your plan. And the reason why I say it's my favorite is because I like having the ability to put a plan in place and watch it come to fruition. But one thing that I also have to remind myself, and I'm going to take the time to remind you today, is you have to understand that it takes several touch points for a customer to actually convert. So don't see every opportunity for outreach as a opportunity to make a sale. You want to continue nurturing your leads. You may not see conversions on the first campaign, you may not see it on the second, but eventually that customer will convert if you're putting the right message in front of the right person. You also want to make sure that everything is connected together. Decide how your campaigns will connect, what content you're going to use, on what platforms, the wine, as Carrie touched on, and also what promos you'll include in these bundles or with these bundles. And then determine how much time you need to test and optimize to meet your deadlines. The goal here is to capture as many potential prospects as possible, expand your existing audience, and then move them to your website to potentially convert. But I want to stress that you think about how it relates to SOND due to the surge in purchases made from the website. And if you take a look at the chart here, you'll see that it's a huge uptick on website sales for November and even October as well. So please keep that in mind. And then moving on to step 3 for your relevant and consistent messaging. This part is key because you need to understand who it is you're selling to and craft your message in an engaging manner. But I also urge you to take it a step deeper and realize that it's not always just about the copy that you're including. It's how you set up your web page. It's what you include on your web page, your bundles, even your imagery. You want to make sure that it's, 1, amplifying your brand messaging, and then 2, speaking to the goal of what you're trying to accomplish. You want to make sure that you focus on a pain point. For a lot of customers during this time frame, anxiety is real in terms of, what do I buy this person? What kind of gift do I get them? So create a gift guide, provide that solution and be that overall solution and give that person a framework for success. Next slide, please. And just to reiterate, having an overall consistent messaging, you have the holiday product in the title for your website, a curated bundle. And like I said, for an overall consistent message, scarcity is very key when it comes to the holidays. And even in luxury in general for the wine brand, people love feeling like they have access to something that others may not get. So if you sell out of an item, leave it on the website and just slap a sold out sticker on it, or change the verbiage to say sold out. You might actually incite action from customers who would usually wait until the last minute or just not purchase at all. And then, of course, always use an additional call to action. Your customer may not bite on the first opportunity or the first offer, but having that second catch-all is great to have in place.
Right. So back to our foundational tasks here. So once you've developed your plan and you've crafted your consistent messaging, you want to be sure that, just as Alex was mentioning, that you're directing traffic to an optimal shopping experience. So again, back to these critical foundation tasks that I must remind you of before you press launch on that campaign. And what we're talking about here is how you must test and optimize your website, your marketplace, your POS, or anywhere that you've chosen to direct the campaign traffic to, and where you'll be measuring the success of your holiday campaign. So first, just want to talk about auditing your website and ensuring links aren't broken. So this is taking the time to go through some test transactions on your website, review that the product content, the images, those are all looking great, nothing's broken. Ensure that your buttons and your links work correctly. Go through the checkout stages as well to test any promotions that you may be offering, any discount codes, or any criteria around a discount, so that you can be sure that there are no areas for your customers to feel any friction, get frustrated, and ultimately abandon their purchase. We don't want that. Using this test period as well is when you can locate drop-off points in the campaign, or where customers may get missed or they could fall out of that purchasing funnel that you've crafted. In addition to ensuring that your website is functioning as it should, we suggest that you take the time to review also the ease of access to your shopping pages. You've got that shopping button front and center, and that you've optimized your product layout. So what we mean there is that your trial wines or these holiday bundles that you want to offer are, at minimum, they're the first wines on your product list, so that they're really easy to find and easy to shop for the consumers visiting your website. Keep in mind that folks who are visiting your website for holiday gifting, it may be their first time on your website before, so we just want to make it really easy for them to find those wines and check out and be on their way. Next couple of steps, just want to remind you again of inventory. We touched on that earlier, but in here I'm talking about setting it up correctly in your DTC sales software. You want to have those inventory pools populated so that everything sells correctly and you can follow the trace of the inventory properly. And then finally, as we are talking about holiday season in North America, we must factor in various temperatures, various weather systems across the country. So spend some time thinking about your shipping strategies and how you can cover the increasing costs associated with shipping as well, because we're all feeling that. And then also double check your fulfillment inventory. And what I mean there is that you have all those packaging types that you need for the various bottles going out into their various carriers. You want to make sure you're covered with just your boxes and everything like that. So on this one, we've got a fun video here where we just wanted to display what it could look like as you comb through your website. Just as an example here, you can see we're checking the content, the images, testing the buttons, making sure they're working. We enter the checkout process and we're spot checking for any errors or point of friction so that we can be sure we're giving our customers an effortless checkout experience and they're enjoying shopping on our site. And then the final tip I have for you before I pass it back to Alex is our step 5 here, and that is check your reliability. And what I mean by this is to do some research into your e-commerce platform or your sales solution here. Do they publish a maintenance schedule ahead of time that you could be aware of? You want to schedule your promotions away from potential maintenance or scheduled disruptions so your customers have that hassle-free shopping experience. We know that maintenance is necessary for software, but let's plan these promotions in a clear window when you're expecting that influx of traffic away from the maintenance schedule. And as well, perhaps your e-commerce publishes uptime stats. You can reach out to them. You can have that peace of mind to know how covered you are going into the season. And finally, if you're at all nervous or seeking that extra reassurance, you can also reach out to your DTC platform provider, asking for sharing the key dates that you have in mind for when you anticipate this major influx of traffic, just to be sure that they have no scheduled disruptions and that they've got their support teams available and ready to assist you should you need it. Okay, I'll pass it back to Alex for our 5th step in creating DTC holiday magic.
Perfect. Thank you. So step 5, collect and review the data. So you launched your campaign in early September. It's now January. You're sitting down with a glass of wine and the whole rush of the holidays is over. And you're looking at your data. And now what do I do with it? So the first thing that you want to do is pull all your data in order to compare your starting goals and KPIs to the results. This will be how you determine what was successful, what needs additional tweaks for the future, and honestly, what will be the basis for your future marketing efforts. This data is king because if you think about it, we started our this whole process off of data pull from last year. So it only makes sense to take the updated results from this year and funnel that back into a campaign for even greater results and more success. And just as an example, if I sent out an email via MailChimp and I take a look at the results, I now know that it has a particularly high ROI and a conversion rate compared to other emails that I sent during this time period. So the next step for me to do is to analyze and determine. I first want to know what was the difference maker. Was it the copy that I used? Was it the offer or was it the segment? And then determine how can I apply this to my future campaigns to duplicate the results. And that's how you create holiday magic. So I'll pass it back over to Carrie to close us out.
All right. So that's it. How are we feeling? Are we ready for SON? September starts a week after tomorrow. So I hope that we've offered you some actionable takeaways that you can put into place at your winery right away and have a successful holiday season. So we just want to review the key highlights really quick here. So to start off, our key takeaway, we learned that consumers are already shopping for their holiday gifting right now. So the earlier that you can be ready with your campaigns, the more consumers you can capture into your sales funnel. Kathy shared some interesting insight I found particularly interesting into the discounting over the holiday season early in the presentation. So with September being that lowest price point for discounts, just keep that in mind as you craft your promotions. And next, to segment your customer base just as deeply as you can with the data you have. Quick shout out here, Enolytics can really help you with this. So I encourage you to reach out to Kathy to learn more. With the segmented list, you can send personalized offers and craft unique campaigns to specific audiences for a better ROI. And to test your campaigns and your website in advance to identify those drop-off points and to reduce friction, so you're reducing any chance of cart abandonment. And finally, to ensure that that you're capturing the data from your campaigns and you're setting time aside to review it, review what worked and what didn't, so that you can move into the next holiday season with a solid foundation, work from there, and keep those DTC sales soaring. If you would like to learn more about current trends and opportunities sourced directly from DTC data, I encourage you to visit our Knowledge Center on the WineDirect website. And here we're showcasing two reports recently published with Enolytics. The first being the 2021 Direct-to-Consumer Impact Report that Kathy mentioned earlier in our presentation. And so this is, as she mentioned, over 5 years of data that we reviewed. So we're seeing pre-COVID, COVID, post-COVID times. It's an expansive look at trends and opportunities for wineries looking to grow their DTC sales. If you're looking for something a bit more recent, we've got our Q2 report, looking at data from the first half of 2022. And we also have a standalone report for Q1 as well. And I'd also like to shout out a case study done together with Gary Farrell a few years ago, looking at their digital strategy. We heard from Alex today, a digital marketing rock star filled with tips and advice. So this case study on the website here looks at how Gary Farrell's digital marketing strategy paired with WineDirect resulted in a surge of online sales. So there's these and hundreds of other articles and resources live and for free on the WineDirect website. And we just want to thank you very much for your time today. We had a pleasure of compiling this information and then sharing it with you today. And thank you very much to my co-panelists. Thanks for joining me here.
Thank you, Carrie.
And we just want to encourage folks to reach out with any questions or comments or also feedback on today's presentation. Hopefully we're having a great chat here in the chat box. Otherwise, feel free to follow up with us personally after the presentation. And happy holidays and take care.